Before the first man walked the earth, before the breath of life touched dust, something else was already awake, something ancient, something waiting. The Bible begins with light, but if you read closely, it also begins with something darker, a silent presence beneath the surface. Genesis 1:2 doesn't open with beauty, it opens with a warning. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. But what was hiding in that deep? What existed in the shadows before? The word was spoken. You're about to uncover a truth that has been buried for millennia. We often imagine the beast of Revelation as a creature of the future, an agent of end times chaos. But what if it wasn't born at the end, but at the beginning? What if the beast didn't rise from rebellion, but was created as a tool of divine judgment before the world even began? Some ancient texts and spiritual insights suggest that a creature of terrifying power was already present, hidden beyond the veil, not in defiance of God, but as part of his plan. A silent enforcer, a witness to the war before Eden, and now it waits to rise again. Before we begin, if you feel the weight of this mystery in your spirit, don't scroll away. Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and share this message with someone who needs to remember the power of God's truth. And if you love the deep mysteries of the Lord, comment Amen below. Let's flood this place with voices who still honor what was hidden before the beginning. The Hebrew word used in Genesis 1:2 for deep is tehom, the abyss, not a poetic metaphor, but a real place in ancient cosmology where primordial forces dwelled. Early Jewish thought didn't treat the abyss as empty, it was populated. The face of the deep wasn't vacant, it was covered, watched, perhaps even guarded. And when the Spirit of God hovered over it, it wasn't just bringing life, it was suppressing what had been sealed there, a containment, a restraint, and whatever was inside, it was not meant for Adam to see. Now think of the book of Revelation. A beast with 7 heads rises from the sea, the abyss, the same deep mentioned in Genesis, the same place covered in darkness before light existed. Is it possible that John didn't see a new monster, but an ancient one that had been waiting in the deep since the foundation of the world? The creature wasn't just part of the end, it was present before the beginning. And the more we study this connection, the clearer it becomes. The apocalypse is not just about the future, it's about remembering what came first. When we think of creation, we imagine order emerging from chaos. But perhaps the chaos wasn't simply the absence of form. Maybe it was a force, a presence that needed to be held back. The Spirit of God didn't just create, it hovered, restrained, controlled. What if that hovering wasn't just artistic imagery, but divine suppression? Holding down something ancient, dangerous, and powerful. The idea of the abyss as a prison appears again in Revelation. So who or what was imprisoned before Adam was even formed? Was the beast already there, hidden beneath the silence? Ancient writings, like the Book of Enoch and the Apocalypse of Abraham, hint at strange beings created before the earth, creatures of immense size and purpose, not demonic, not angelic, but something else. They weren't enemies of God, at least not at first. They were instruments of justice, of judgment, made for divine wrath. But when rebellion entered the heavens, these beings became unstable. Unleashed, they could devour all creation, so they were sealed away, locked beneath layers of creation itself, only to be released when the time was right. Could this explain why the sea in Revelation is the origin of terror? Why the beast doesn't rise from heaven or hell, but from the abyss? It's not an invasion, it's a return. The waters didn't just cover the earth in Noah's day, they covered something older, and when the time of the end draws near, that seal weakens. John didn't just see prophecy, he saw memory. He witnessed the return of what once walked before man, a beast created for judgment, now corrupted by time, waiting to complete what it was once assigned to do. And what if Adam's creation was directly linked to this hidden creature? What if mankind wasn't just made to tend a garden, but to stand as a witness, a contrast to what had been judged before? The serpent wasn't the only danger in Eden. The greatest threat was what lay underneath. The forbidden tree wasn't just a test of obedience, it was a line between two realms, the seen and the sealed. God placed Adam on holy ground, not just to bless him, but to keep him far from the abyss, because something ancient was still breathing beneath the soil. In Revelation 9, we read of a star falling from heaven, given the key to the abyss. When it opens the pit, smoke rises, and out come strange, tormenting creatures, locust-like beings with faces of men and the sting of scorpions. But the detail that should shake us most is this: these beings were already there. They weren't created in that moment. They were released, which means the prison existed long before. The lock was divine, and the key held back until judgment would be allowed to return. These aren't symbols. They are remnants of something real and very old. Many overlook the fact that the beast of Revelation 13 is not described as being created, but simply as rising. It ascends from the sea as if it had always been there. Its heads, horns, and blasphemous names aren't inventions of the end times. They're identifiers of a creature that's lived through ages, kingdoms, and empires. Some scholars suggest it represents human systems, others say it's a metaphor, but what if it's both and more? A conscious being that influenced ancient rulers, laying low through time, influencing from beneath until the final hour. The serpent in Eden is often assumed to be Satan, but the text never directly says this. What if the serpent wasn't the only ancient intelligence at work? What if something else was influencing the garden from below, not speaking, but waiting? If God placed cherubim with flaming swords to guard the tree of life, what else needed guarding from the other side? The Bible says the earth groans. Why? Could it be that the soil itself remembers the weight of something once buried? A beast whose presence still echoes beneath creation. This raises a haunting thought. What if the flood of Noah wasn't just judgment on mankind, but also reinforcement, a divine act to suppress what had begun to rise again? The waters that covered the mountains weren't just cleansing. They were sealing, submerging the cracks in the spiritual barrier that had begun to break. The beast was not to rise yet. It was not its time, but the flood bought time, a reset, a delay in the unleashing of something mankind was never supposed to face, until now. Throughout Scripture, there are veiled references to forces that predate man. Job 40 and 41 describe Behemoth and Leviathan, creatures of immense power, unmatched by anything natural. God himself speaks of them with reverence, almost as if they are living weapons. Leviathan, in particular, is called the king over all the sons of pride. But here's the question: where is Leviathan now? Why does Isaiah say the Lord will punish Leviathan, the twisting serpent that lives in the sea? Is Leviathan just a metaphor or one of the early faces of the beast? Even early church fathers debated whether some spiritual creatures had existed before Genesis 1:1. The concept of time before time appears in both Jewish mysticism and Christian apocrypha. According to some of these writings, beings were created before the world, to serve, to judge, and in some cases, to destroy. But once the world began, these creatures were no longer needed, and thus sealed away. But sealed things don't vanish, they wait. And in the silence of waiting, some grow bitter, others restless. The beast may be one such prisoner, Now consider this. If God created the heavens and the earth, he also created the boundaries between realms, heaven, earth, and the deep. And the deep, the abyss, was not meant for man. It was the domain of sealed judgment. Yet as mankind rebels, sins, and corrupts, the boundary weakens. That's why Revelation is not just a prophecy, it is a return, a reappearance of what was hidden from the beginning. The beast is not new. It is ancient, and when it rises, it does so not as a stranger, but as something that remembers. And perhaps this is why Jesus spoke of the last days as being like the days of Noah. Not only because of wickedness, but because something underneath was stirring. The flood silenced it once. But in the last days, no water will hold it back. The seal will break, the deep will open, and the creature of judgment, the beast, before man, will rise not as punishment alone, but as a final reminder, a reminder that before grace, before Eden, before light, there was something waiting in the dark, and it has not forgotten. What terrifies us about the beast is not just its power. It's the sense that we've seen it before. Across ancient cultures, from Mesopotamia to Egypt, depictions of multi-headed beasts, serpents of chaos, and divine monsters appear again and again. The Epic of Gilgamesh speaks of creatures sealed in the deep. The Ugaritic texts speak of a sea dragon named Lotan, a mirror image of Leviathan. Could all these legends be fractured memories of one ancient being? A creature so real, so fearsome, that its echo remained in every civilization long after Eden was closed? When John described the beast in Revelation, it wasn't a vague shadow, it was specific. 7 heads, 10 horns, names of blasphemy. These are not symbols pulled from fantasy. They are identifiers, descriptions of something that had form, identity, and history. And it didn't just come from the abyss, it came with permission. And it was given authority. The text says, who gave it that? This isn't chaos breaking free on its own. This is judgment being released. The creature is part of a divine sequence. It's not rogue, it's appointed, and yet this is where the fear deepens. If the beast was appointed, then it serves a purpose. And if it serves a purpose, then its appearance is not just punishment, it's fulfillment. A completion of a plan older than humanity, older than sin. The beast may have been the first to witness rebellion in the heavens. It may have seen the fall of angels, the sealing of realms, and the formation of man. And now, as humanity approaches its final chapter, that same beast will rise to bear witness again, not just as a destroyer, but as a recorder of final justice. What's most chilling is the possibility that this creature knows us, not as individuals, but as a race. It saw us created. It watched us fall, and now it rises to finish what began long ago, not out of hatred, but out of memory. We were not its first mission, but we might be its last. The beast is not simply coming, it's returning, and when it does, it won't need to learn who we are. It will only need to remember who it used to be and what it was created to do before man ever drew breath. In the book of Job, God asks a question no human can answer. Can you pull in Leviathan with a fish hook? Or tie down its tongue with a rope? The tone is not poetic, it's confrontational. It's as if God is reminding us that there are forces He alone controls, and that to even approach them is death. Job wasn't just hearing about sea creatures, he was being confronted with something ancient, something untouchable. Perhaps Leviathan was the earthly shadow of a greater spiritual being, the beast itself, glimpsed through a veil, then hidden again. If the beast predates man, it means our existence was never the starting point of history, only a chapter, a middle point in a much older war. We were born into a reality where things were already in motion, judgment already prepared, creatures already sealed. The reason we fear the end times isn't because of what will be created, but because of what will be unsealed. The scrolls, the trumpets, the bowls, they don't summon new horrors. They release old ones. The final pages are not about invention. They are about unveiling. So why would God allow such a creature to exist in the first place? That's the question many avoid, but the answer lies in the nature of divine justice. Just as there are angels of mercy, there are agents of judgment. The beast is not evil because of its form. It becomes evil when it is separated from its purpose. Once corrupted, it turns from a tool of righteousness into a predator of the innocent. That's why it was sealed. Not destroyed, sealed. Because in the end, even corrupted power must fulfill prophecy, and now humanity is nearing the edge of that prophecy. Technology advances, morality crumbles, spiritual discernment fades, and below it all, the abyss trembles. We can feel it, a sense of pressure beneath the surface of history, something stirring. The world doesn't need to be convinced that judgment is coming, it senses it. And maybe, just maybe, the beast is not approaching from afar, but rising from below. Not a foreign invader, but a long-lost witness, returning to claim what was once taken from it. Throughout history, mankind has tried to forget what it fears. The abyss has been reimagined as mythology, the beast recast as metaphor. But forgetting doesn't erase truth. It only dulls the senses. And while we've distracted ourselves with progress and pride, the seal has thinned. Revelation doesn't say the beast is defeated when it rises. It says it is worshipped. The world marvels at it. That's the danger. When something ancient returns, it doesn't always come as a monster. Sometimes it comes as a god. This is why spiritual discernment is more vital now than ever, because what's rising won't immediately look evil. It may even appear majestic, powerful, and wise. A being clothed in authority, with words that stir awe. But deep within, it carries memory. Memory of a time before mankind, before grace, before Eden. A time when judgment walked freely, and light had not yet pierced the deep. Those who do not know the beginning will be fooled at the end. Because the beast knows exactly how to speak to a world that's forgotten its origin. The question is no longer if the beast is real, but when it will rise. And when it does, will we recognize it? Will we remember that God warned us, not just in Revelation, but in Genesis? The deep, the void, the spirit hovering over the waters. These were not peaceful beginnings. They were acts of divine restraint. God didn't just create, He contained. He set limits, sealed realms, and held back forces until the appointed hour. That hour may be closer than we think. What lies beneath the surface of our world isn't just geology, it's history, a spiritual history that predates man. The beast isn't just a creature of fire and horns, it's a memory, a force, a being that once walked the borders of heaven and now prepares to walk the earth. The deeper we dig spiritually and historically, the more we find shadows that were never meant to be fully exposed. And yet, the time of silence is ending. The scroll is opening, and what was buried before the beginning is coming back to finish what was started. Every generation has looked for signs in the sky, wars on the earth, or disasters in nature to signal the end. But what if the true sign is not above us, but below? The beast rises from the sea, from the abyss, from what was hidden and sealed, not from the heavens, but from the depths. That tells us something crucial. The final battle won't begin with something new appearing, but with something ancient returning. Something forgotten by men, but never forgotten by God, because it was God who locked it away. When Jesus cast out demons, they begged him not to send them into the abyss. That verse, often overlooked, is deeply revealing. Even the spirits of darkness fear the abyss, not because it's empty, but because they know who dwells there. The abyss isn't hell. It's deeper than that. It's a chamber of judgment, a waiting room for forces that don't belong in the present, yet will be unleashed. In the end, if demons tremble at its gates, what does that tell us about what's locked behind them? The beast is not Satan. The Bible makes that distinction clear. Satan gives the beast his power, but the beast is a separate entity. This is important, because it means the beast has its own will, its own identity, and its own history. It is not merely a puppet, it is a player. A creature so ancient that its origins are barely hinted at. A creature that once served, then fell. And like man, it awaits its hour. But unlike man, it was never offered redemption. It doesn't seek salvation, it seeks release. And now, as the world slides toward chaos, moral, spiritual, and cosmic, the boundaries thin. The pit doesn't open with a roar. It opens with a whisper, a crack, a tremor in the deep. And when it does, the beast will not come as a stranger. It will come as something that belongs, something that has been here before. And for those who do not know the ancient patterns, those who have forgotten that judgment has form, they will look upon it and say, "Who is like the beast, and who can wage war against it?" In the end, the beast doesn't rise to surprise God. It rises because God allows it. It plays a role in the final unveiling of truth, a mirror to humanity's corruption, a reflection of what the world becomes without the light. This is not a creature of random destruction. It is judgment made manifest. A being that reminds the universe that God is not only love, he is also justice. And justice has a shape, a face, a voice. And for one final season in history, that voice will echo once more from the abyss. But we must remember this. The beast is not the end. It is only the sign that the end has begun. Revelation never gives the beast the final word. Its rise is terrifying, but its fall is certain. The Lamb still reigns. The throne is not empty. The God who once sealed the beast away will judge it once and for all. But until then, the world will be tested. Loyalties will be exposed, and only those who recognize the ancient war will understand the weight of what is rising beneath our feet. This message is not about fear, it's about preparation. Spiritual blindness is the true danger, because what comes from the abyss won't look like a monster to everyone. It will seduce, deceive, impress, and only those who have been taught, who have watched, who have listened, will resist. The beast was before man, but man was made in God's image, and with the Spirit of God within, we were not created to fear the dark, but to stand against it. So now the question is no longer, what is the beast? The question is, will you recognize it when it returns? Because what once crawled beneath the foundations of creation is rising again. Not for the beginning, but for the end. And only those who understand what came before Genesis will understand what's truly coming after Revelation. Now that you've seen what was hidden before the beginning, the only question left is, will you be ready when it returns? If this message stirred your heart, don't leave in silence. Subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and share this with someone who still believes that God reveals his secrets to those who seek. And if you made it to the end, comment "I'm awake" below to show the world you're not spiritually blind. You are part of the remnant who still watches and still believes.